Okay, guys, hello. Today's our live streaming about women in tech and venture capital. This is my gorgeous ladies. Please introduce yourself. Merri, you
I'm
should be
Merri
casted.
Silverstein. I'm New York and Miami, and I advise and invest in startups, technology, blockchain, AR, VR, AI, and biotech. I'm looking to build an all-women fund. I was starting before COVID to move the needle of women investors in VC. So we were going to do all technology. And the goal is to mentor women and help rise them up. So eventually we can invest in all women-led projects. That's our goal.
No, thank you so much, Svetlana.
Hello, I'm Svetlana. I'm from Moscow and I'm founder of Forensics. This is the company which provides the banks and payment system, online identification and verification biometry.
Okay. And you actually
Hello.
was in San Francisco too?
Yeah, in San Francisco, Singapore.
Okay.
As well. As I'm usually said, I'm living in between.
Okay, and my first question about insights and beyond like the next 15 years, what's going on with technologies? Like let's talk about trends, like artificial intelligence, maybe something in robots, medical devices, and education tech. And what's going on with COVID in our crisis?
Well, that's a big one that you just brought up. There's a lot happening in technology in every one of those fields, and it's moving incredibly fast. I have to say it's impressive. The world understands now what we can do with technology and software and data and tracking and the information we can get so fast. For example, COVID, which hit here about, 6 months ago, we already have so much information. It's amazing, thanks to all the software. So I think that it's helping them not only understand it, but be able to develop what they're trying to do as the vaccine, right? So they couldn't have done this 10 years ago at this pace. It would have been impossible. As far as our world goes, what's big in technology? I think that we want to turn a lot of things that we do green, healthier for the environment. I think we're trying to change energy all over this planet to things that are safer and cheaper. So, for example, I met with someone yesterday who's using water and breaking down the H, the hydrogen, from the oxygen. And together, when he breaks it, it creates energy. It's a brilliant project. So today it's fascinating, all the things that we're going to hear about.
And how it's work for the New York City?
So New York City's back at work. I don't know that people ever stopped working. They just didn't leave their homes. Streets were quiet, but the buildings are quite bright at night. And, you know, that people in tech can work remote. They can work from anywhere in the world. So that's the great part of it. So we've been building and speaking and growing. And I don't know if there's much change other than people may not be going back to their offices as much. They've learned, especially tech people, that they work perfectly fine remotely. So office space might change, but technology is doing terrific. Everything's moving.
Okay, thank you so much, Svetlana.
Yes, and technology is moving so fast. Just I can imagine if you're, well, for example, on a beach taking cocktail, and simply in 3 seconds you can open an account, take a credit, or to buy something very nice, Chanel shoes, for example. So it's possible now, and it's possible to do with our mobile phones, and thanks to machine learning and artificial intelligence. But unfortunately, all these technologies has the second part, I should say, like black side, for example, for not good people who use this technology just to, well, in my business, we prevent the deep fake. But deepfake is also based on artificial intelligence and machine learning. And any people just using any photo of another person from Instagram or Facebook can do this kind of movie and send us identification of the person to, for example, loan some sort of money. It's also just the white side and the black side. And I totally agree that our green technologies are growing fastly as well. And I would like to say that the more companies now have the social responsibility about it. and also like inclusion people. And it's so important to support them too. Just an example, I read an interesting article that the people with Down syndrome can do the just simply to mark any data just very carefully. And it's great to give them job as well. And I can say something also about the pandemic period, if we would like to continue with this kind of question too. Shall we?
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and yeah, they have one more lady from San Francisco. Radhika, hello.
Hi, how are you, Manana?
Oh.
Nice to meet you. Hey, Merri,
Yes.
good to see you
Hi,
again.
good to see you.
Yeah.
Yes. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
So thanks, Manana. Great to see everybody again. So I'm Radhika Iyengar. I'm founding partner of StarChain Ventures. We're a venture studio based here in Silicon Valley. And we're focused on the convergence of advanced technologies, artificial intelligence, AI, ML, blockchain, IoT, and in various sectors. Healthcare is a big passion sector for me, as well as FemTech and IoT, and using IoT as well for healthcare. And also supply chains. So those are three big areas that we're focused on. I'm a TEDx speaker, Silicon Valley Woman of Influence. I'm an author of the book Enterprise Blockchain Has Arrived, which was released Q4 last year. I'll show this up really quick. That's my book. And, you know, really excited about this space, particularly on the enterprise side, and looking forward to an exciting panel discussion on that. I'm also a member of the California GovOps Blockchain Working Group, advising California State Legislature and Governor Gavin Newsom. We just published our report early July, so if you haven't seen that, check that out because it's pretty groundbreaking, I think, and visionary from a tech policy perspective, and really hoping that that will have some impact, not only here in the United States, but elsewhere. Thank you very much for having me, Manana.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for coming. What's going on in San Francisco and Silicon Valley? What is new?
Climate change going on. Yeah, in all seriousness, it's been quite the year. Pandemic on one side and fires raging on the other side, and really reminding us all that sustainability and climate change is a huge focus. I think all of us should be passionate about that because it's our planet. And so as Greta Thunberg says, our house is burning. So very literally, our house has been burning in that sense, and our backyards. And it's been pretty eerie with all the orange skies. If any of you have seen images on the news, it really truly was orange. Some yellowy orange, I suppose, like at my house, but it felt quite strange. So I think on top of pandemic, we've been dealing with a very serious reminder that climate change is absolutely real and it is happening. And we've all got to band together to do something real about it.
Okay, my first question was about what is the new technologies?
In new technologies.
Yeah. Yeah, what's going on in
I think AI is still the hot button word. Everybody focused on AI and ML, but you know the big question is how, and you know how are you implementing that? What are you doing with it? Because I think it's the hot buzzword you see in all the investor decks that come by is AI this and AI that, and blockchain I think less so, but I continue to be very passionate about that because I think that. There's a great need for transparency and trust around data. And so we've all realized the limits have been broken in terms of the trust around data and privacy being a part of that equation as well. So I think, you know, what's really hot is convergence of advanced technologies. And that's kind of why our venture studio is focused so heavily on that convergence. Because it's the applications of multiple advanced technologies as they come together to solve some really big problems. And so in healthcare, we're seeing all three of those, in addition to connectivity, 5G, for example. In healthcare, we're seeing great applications, which we can discuss later in remote patient monitoring, for example. And COVID has, I think, brought that front and center where, being able to have access remotely through telehealth, through other technologies that you can have, sensors and so on. All of that has to kind of come together. And so that's a big hot topic, I think, of what COVID is going to mean to have access to healthcare, have access to financial services, have access to all of the things that we consider normal in our lives, but do it remotely. And so I think that's a big hot topic. I'm sure it is in many other parts of the world.
Yeah, and my next question, how we can support to the female founders, and what does the new investment process should look like after the COVID? What do you think?
I'll let my panelists maybe jump in.
Interesting question.
Yeah, yeah, Merri.
I think it definitely slowed down a bit due to everything being, used on Zoom. It's more of a presentation than just getting to know people and feeling a connection that you're more interested in their project and maybe investing with them. It was harder to feel that bond. And you also had, everything was on a schedule. And a lot of times you just sort of meet people at an event and you just start talking, you just have a connection, and that's how it happens. It's not always scheduled. Sometimes your pitches are scheduled. So I think I got thrown off for sure in the beginning because we were first worried about our health in general. And then slowly we tried to get back. I think right now, maybe we're all the way back there, even if we're not meeting in person. I think that this is the time, especially after we've had our summer holidays. Us here in the United States are really ready to go back. And so my phone the last 10 days, I tell you, I've never been this busy. It's like, whoa, everybody's back. So I think this is a good time. I've spoken to at least a dozen people in the past week, who are really serious. Their projects are ready to roll. They're ready to get their investors in. Fantastic things. So I think we're ready to go. We can't stop. The time's moving. We're getting to work.
I think, I think there's definitely a lot more activity. I would agree with you, Merri. I don't know that it's quite back to normal. And it's not at all the case here in Northern California. I think everything is still very much in this cautious mode of dealing with the pandemic and all the other things that I mentioned early on when I came on. These are real things. And so I think that's distracting. It's not like it's business as usual. I think there's an uptick of activity and recognition that we're here and, basically approaching Q4, and it's going to be the big bang before the year is out. Yeah. But I think a lot of people looking forward to the year being out. We've just had an onslaught of other things that are very, very important, like safety of family. So it's been a bit distracting. I'll just say that.
Okay, Svetlana.
Yes, I would like to say that I have already participated in many exhibitions, but these were virtual exhibitions. It really was a very interesting experience when you can't see the people, or you're just simply using chat. Sometimes their visitors would like to use Zoom, for example, to talk to you personally, but still really you need to have more new skills to attract to your company, to attract to your project, as well as VC representative too. So I think this time is a really good opportunity to develop yourself, to develop your professional skills, the new ones when you are in distance as well. So just my last one was the exhibition for FemTech in Vietnam and Indonesia. And now I'm preparing to the big one, Communication. Also, there will be virtual one.
And what is the new strategy for the investors right now?
I would like just to maybe to give you a short history of my company. Mm-hmm. So we didn't attract any investments. We did everything on our own money. And so now we are growing twice every year. Now we understand that we need to multiply our business, especially in Asia, because this is a very good market for us to be fast to implement our technology. in banks and financial institutions. And that's why we are just start the first step to look at the VCs, at the angels as well, and to make a brand of our company for VCs too. So that's why I'm very interested to participate in any events, to do networking and so on. And I'm very open to any advices too.
Okay.
Different kind of networking.
Very different, but you know, I think it's all good, right? We're all trying to focus on business.
Yep.
Whatever that side of business is focusing on business and advancing. And it's in a way, I think it's been really great because we've now gone into this mental state of I think truly being receptive to this digital world. I think before that, I think it was kind of an adjunct, right? And now it's just front and center, right? This is really what we have available to us. And in one way, I think it's been liberating from a global perspective because it's really bringing the world a bit closer together. And I think last night having a conversation with somebody just, you know, lovely, who's basically in Mauritius right now. And next week talking to somebody in Australia. And I think, you know, just the closeness of connections where you feel a lot freer, even digitally, to express yourself because there's no other medium, right? We're not going to be able to do the face-to-face for a while longer. And who knows when all of that will really, truly ease up. So I think that it's freeing us to, I think, be more authentic digitally and to be ourselves. And it's almost like I am here face-to-face with the three of you and trying to experience it as live as possible and being as authentic and as natural as possible, right? So I think that doing business in this medium, I think, has been a new sort of norm and a new reality, if you will. But I think in one way it has been liberating in saying that we're here, we're home, but we're also very connected globally. And, you know, it's whatever time zone you're in, it doesn't matter. It's just bringing people closer. So I think in this particular time, I appreciate that fact. I appreciate the fact that we don't have to be jetting off here or there. I mean, previously the whole conference season was insane. You know, you'd be traveling all the time, and it was really living on planes and in planes and hotels. And now it's just, well, you're home, right? But it doesn't prevent you from the ability to connect, the ability to forge relationships, and that's the key to doing business and to doing good business is to getting to know somebody. And hopefully they bring their authentic selves on the digital medium as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
I personally had many presentations on Zoom. You know, luckily we're all in tech, so we already had Zoom. We were used to Zoom, right? Yeah. Which was great. A presentation, 20 minutes, half an hour. You bring on a few investors. You have a few people that built this project. And I love that. I also would have group meetings on Zoom once a week, every Friday at noon. So in that respect, I was used to it. I do truly miss the in-person part because you never know who you're going to meet, or when you start to have this meeting and when it's over, you find things in common and you start to form these bonds. And sometimes to me, those were special because the more I get to know you and I trust you and I understand how you work, the more I feel that there's this great connection and you're somebody I want to work with for a few years and do these things with. And I can't always get that over Zoom. You know, we're on and then we're off. So it's sort of different, you know? So there's good and there's bad. Whereas if we look at teachers and children, well, that's a whole new place for them. They've never been on this kind of a platform before. And I'm sure most teachers are not happy. It's hard. No one prepped them for this. No one gave them, you know, lessons. They didn't even know how to get on. I helped people in the medical profession get on for about a month and a half, set them up all day long, whatever I could do. But so it's different for everybody, you know, so you're used to it and you're enjoying it. And you're right. We're not on and off all these planes and all these hotels, but there's good and there's bad. So we might get more sleep, but you might be up in the middle of the night if you're talking to Australia, right?
Well, it's 24/7. Business is 24/7. And so I think that sleep is, well, that's a different conversation altogether. But productivity, I think it's variable. I find myself working actually quite a bit more because I am on all the time. I think you're absolutely right, Merri. I mean, nothing replaces a physical meeting face to face, but who knows when that's going to happen again. So in the meantime, we make lemons out of lemonade, so to speak.
We do.
I think in different professions, there are, I think, unique challenges which now present opportunities, I think. From an impact perspective and an inclusivity perspective, I think that not everyone is blessed to have this connectivity available to them. So let's say school, for example. You've got many families that don't have connections to the internet who are left out basically now. And so there's a greater divide. The digital divide that we're seeing is even more present and felt in areas of education where you're working with socioeconomic groups that are under resourced. And so, you know, we've got an opportunity now to bridge that gap more than ever before, because otherwise we are literally leaving segments of the population. Same thing goes for healthcare, access to healthcare. If you say, well, you're going to have telehealth solutions available to you to be able to consult with your doctor, what does that look like if you don't have access to the internet, right? So I think that when we're talking about this digital divide, that's an area that's really on my mind, because we're on all the time. We're blessed to have that resource. What about those who don't have access to that resource? How do they get connected to the things that they need to do to survive, to thrive, you know? And so that's, I think there's an opportunity, even from an investment standpoint, you know, what are people doing from an impact perspective to bridge that divide and I'm not talking about philanthropic sort of activities to say, oh, you know, we'll gift this to a community or whatever. Maybe that's part of the solution, but there's got to be a different way. So, you know, I'm looking always at wherever there's a challenge, there's got to be an opportunity to do something differently and think differently about it. So I find that that's now also something that I'm thinking about.
I think that's fantastic that you just brought that up. And I think that obviously, unfortunately, we have problems like a COVID, and you just brought up something incredible, that's something we really need to take care of. You're right. There's a digital divide. What happens if you don't have these things? We do need to come up with solutions. That's just brilliant. I think that's the best thing I've heard in a long time. Really, we need to fix that around the world, right? And that's a great way to bring equality to everybody. And I know we were building projects a few years ago where if you lived in an area where there really wasn't any kind of Wi-Fi, we were bringing these devices that could bounce it in. So as long as they had any kind of cell phone, they were okay. But this is important because children don't necessarily have cell phones. And how do we bring everyone in? What if they can't afford Wi-Fi where they live? We need to maybe build centers or use hopefully things that we're going to put up into the sky.
Well, and even, you know, I don't know, mobile units or something, you know, right. Something where, you know, you've got things that you've got to be able to provide access. You know, even things that my kids took for granted in many ways, you know, when they were little, you know, going to the public library and, you know, that whole experience. And they loved doing that, you know, and then even though we have tons of books at home, it was a special experience to go to the public library to do that sort of thing. But you can't do any of those things, right? And so it's really a new landscape. And I think the challenge, the gauntlet is now before us. It's a big gauntlet too. It's a big challenge. And it's really, I think, you know, let's talk about women in tech and women in leadership for a moment. I think that this opportunity is ours to step through this door, this giant challenge door, and say, what can we as women leaders do differently and better? Because we are thinking about these things in ways that maybe other people don't, right? I mean, if you're a mother and you've had children and you know what this is like, and you think about the new classroom or you think about the new way of delivering healthcare, you know, how do you do that, right? And you think about the women who don't have access, who might be, you know, struggling, right, to provide this to their families. So I think that we as women leaders have a real opportunity to reshape this world. I want to bring up a beautiful thought. I'm not going to read the whole quote. I was on this call, like I said, with a friend from Mauritius, and she quoted something from her favorite writer from India, Arundhati Roy. And that quote basically says, you know, this is like a portal, right? This is a portal where we walk through and reimagine and reshape a new future. because we can't go back to the old way of doing things. It's just not doable. It's not tenable. It's not something that is going to be possible, really. And so we've got this new portal that we can walk through. And I thought that was a beautiful thought, because we do indeed have this new opportunity that we can walk through a new door and do things differently and better, not leaving people behind, and really thinking about those who have and those who don't have. And what do you do about the people who don't have, who need access to just as much as the people who have, right?
That's great. It's really great.
It's really interesting. Okay, what is your advice for the female founders during COVID? Maybe about fundraising, maybe about new ideas, maybe about new advisors and mentors, how they can survive?
I think if you're an advisor or a consultant, you need to show them how important it is for their presentations, for their websites, for their decks, because they cannot, again, in person, share what it's all about, you know, that feeling. So you have to become more talented using this platform. You have to do a much better presentation than you did before. You have to be able to connect with the people, not just explain what this thing is that you've built and what it can do and why yours is great. So I think that your personality, your ability to really form some bonds there, you only get so much time when you do presentations. So that's definitely something that I would work with them, and why they should get on your presentation, because if you can't get them on, that's it. You don't have another way to do a big event or meet in person. It doesn't exist right now, right? So you need to change up your talents there, tune them up.
Let's Svetlana go
We all
first.
need to.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I think that I will be glad to add the previous question because of pandemic and how it influences. Because from my perspective of my business, I see that a lot of government, they just simply, a lot of countries would like to change their regulation, their policies, in order to digitalize a lot of spheres of the people, just simply to provide them more solutions to help to survive during the pandemic area, even just some sort of small compensation of money for the retirement people and so on and so forth. For example, I know Malaysia is now close to change the regulation and to open the possibility to use remote identification to get into government services like this. I know in other countries like Russia, Ukraine as well, they would like to change their regulation. I think everything after pandemic just make a very great influence on our everyday life right now, and more opportunities we have because really we have technologies. And all of the government representatives, they go to the people who knows technologies and ask them to help them to do this kind of changes. And that's, I think, sounds very great. And definitely, I totally agree that networking is the key issue. And that's the really advice my colleague just mentioned before, and I totally support.
I'll say, you know, Manana, you asked about what advice for women founders. You know, I think they're great new things that, as I alluded to in my previous comment, we have the ability to see the world the way we see the world, and it's a different perspective. And I think that there's no time than the present to showcase how our abilities to think differently, to think more inclusively, to think more compassionately, to think more, you know, just thinking about how do you bridge all of these communities globally. I mean, I think our ability to do that, I think, really separates us. We're multitaskers, and I think our gifts and our talents at being able to see connections, connecting the dots in a very, very different way, to think very purposefully and meaningfully, to think in a way of how do you get to the other side, being more resourceful than ever before. I think these are talents that I think, and gifts that I think women excel at. And I think it's a really great opportunity to recognize that we need to support and encourage women founders because we do think differently. This new world, this portal, like Arundhati Roy was writing, this is a new opportunity. It's a brand new world. And so we have a great advantage, I think, because these are gifts that come naturally to us. And that kind of leadership and thinking is absolutely necessary for the next century and beyond. I was just reading an article about, the Maldives. They're basically saying that they're going to lose so many of their islands. There's like 1,200 islands or something, and they're going to be 80% of their islands are potentially submerged by 2100. And they're building a new island now, kind of a reclaimed island that has different issues in terms of coral and impact on coral reefs there. But I was just thinking about that, saying they're building a new tomorrow for themselves, for their people, saying, it's not about the tourists who come in and want to see the resorts and so on. It's about the people of the Maldives and what are they going to construct, because the biggest city they have is overcrowded. It's probably one of the more densely populated regions of the earth. So they're building the smart city. They're building houses that are north-south facing, which are much more eco-friendly than the opposite way. They're building infrastructure that is all electric. And I'm thinking this is the tomorrow we really all need to be thinking about. And I appreciate those kinds of initiatives. So I think for women, look for opportunities that impact, look for things that actually meaningfully make a difference in the world. Look for things where, our particular talents and our abilities to connect the dots in a different way make it natural. It's a natural fit. And I think that's the way we separate ourselves from everyone else, because everyone else is going to be doing the yada, yada, yada. You've seen it all, you've done it all. It's continuation of the status quo in a way. And I see many of that coming through is just a continuation. It's like the pandemic never happened. It's like all these fires are not happening. It's like all these floods are not happening. Wrong, right? I mean, this is like a new world. We have to think about a different way of approaching it. So I think it's a great opportunity for women to showcase their leadership, their thinking skills, their critical abilities to do things differently. I do think the one advice I do have is don't give up, because there's a lot of naysaying. I will say, from being a woman of color, I'm probably the only woman of color on this panel anyway, and that's a very different lens, because we've got to, my father used to tell me when I was growing up, you're going to have to do things 3 times better than everyone else. You're going to have to work harder than everybody else. You're going to have to do and excel better than everyone else, because you're not going to be given a second chance. You're not going to be given the kinds of opportunities available to people that don't have your skin color. And I'm always reminded of that, because there's microaggressions, macroaggressions that we come into face to face with, not only as women, but as women of color too. And so my advice to women is look for mentors and advisors who really think thoughtfully about what you're trying to construct. Don't make some glib remark trying to put you down, undermine what you're trying to create, devalue your contribution. Think about the advisors who are actually going to contribute and add value and support you in your mission and your vision and help you in the ways that you need to get from point A to point B or point to C, whatever, and help you change paths along the way. These are the advisors you need to be looking for, and they can be male and female. There are many great men I've been working with recently. My business partner, my co-author, he's fantastic. He's a great champion for diversity and inclusion. There are many others like him. Find those people. Find great women, look at these amazing women on this panel, right? I mean, find great women who have so much to offer, and approach things very thoughtfully, and reach out to those people, because they're going to help you shape your path in a better way. So my advice to women is, I think it's a great world we're in. I mean, in the US, I think we're facing a fantastic opportunity, even at the elections coming up. Kamala Harris, being of mixed race descent, father Jamaican, Indian mother, fantastic, right? Fantastic story that's developing and giving us all a new face up there in the administration. And I think that's a great opportunity too. So deriving all of these inspiration points for women that are out there doing the great things and seeking women who are out there wanting to make a difference too. I think I advise women founders to find those people, men or women, but I think that there's a lot of women that can give you great advice.
Yeah, it's
Very well
great.
said.
Mary, what do you think? Yeah.
Very well said. She really
Yeah.
covered a lot of not only what I do, how I feel, that if we have the ability to help another woman come into the industry, back her, even emotionally, teach her how to walk in, make that presentation and take over, because women really do know what they're doing and they do have emotions and they do care about every person. And for some reason, I feel that we feel it more. I don't know how to really say that properly, but when you say we must be all inclusive and diverse, immediately I say, of course we do. Boy, we weren't, then we need to change that now, because I didn't even, as I think about that, right? But it's been brought to the table. We all know this now, whatever country, wherever you are in the world, and being a female. So I myself feel that 2020, especially in January, not knowing COVID was coming, this is the year of women. This is the women year. Each year there's another thing at the table. This is our year, and I feel it is, despite COVID, doing phenomenal. I am seeing so many new things being built up by women and them being supported, women of color being supported, all kinds of groups that are starting. In fact, I mentored a wonderful woman in London. She started an entire blockchain for women in color. And by the way, I was just voted top 100 women in the world in blockchain. So I was very, very happy for that. And so I've supported a lot of people in London. There's a really great group of people there in tech. And so this is a wonderful time. And yes, you're right. COVID's even made us more aware of some of these things, of what we're lacking in. It's brought us together in different sort of groups. And I think that women have really been able to step it up. Maybe it's easier to come on a laptop and speak than maybe in front of a room full of people where it's mostly men. Maybe here you feel, it's just you and it's easier, but whatever it takes, we need to stick together. We need to support one another. We need to raise everybody's view of what it's really like to not feel equal or not feel included at all times. And I think if we can get that across emotionally as well as politically, that people will have more awareness every day. And it only makes me happier and happier to see women going further and further. And like I said, I'm trying to change that needle for women investors in tech, but in a few years, I want to see that in women building the projects in tech. I don't have enough things there yet that we can go say we just want to invest in the women, but I believe we will, in 5 or less years, see the most phenomenal things being built by women leaders, women inventors. Biotech, we do have more women. But when we come to AI and blockchain and AR, we have so few women, especially on the top. And that means a lot to me. There's no reason why they are not brought up. And I don't know if I've said this before, but my issue is that when you're 4 years old, what are you exposed to? Are men and women exposed, or children, to the same exact things? They're not. The boys are handed these video games and the girls are handed dolls. How can they come out equal then? So it starts when you're 4. We need to expose them to the same exact things and let them decide, because young men can play with the dolls, young women can play video games. Pick whatever you like. We all have their talents.
Sure.
So I'd like to start there someday. That would be a project I'd like to do right there, is how we educate our children. And of course, the other things is to bring in self-respect and self-love. And then I feel that this world can become one and all love each other. It doesn't matter what we look like on the outside. It doesn't matter anything. It matters who we are and how we treat each other. And by nature, we should all be good to one another no matter what. So,
Merri, I love the point you brought up in terms of pipeline development, and it's a multi-pronged sort of effort, I think, because it's how we raise our next generation, men and women, boys and girls included, because I've got 2 young men, and very happy to say that they're incredibly inclusive individuals and incredibly inclusive and compassionate young men. And I think that's the ruling philosophy here. Man or woman, it doesn't matter. Whatever you are, it doesn't matter. No matter what color you are, no matter what race you are, it doesn't matter. It's really viewing the world as one. And I think that, Merri, you really hit up the nail on the head on that one, because it is a one world. That's the color of the world that we need to see it. It's all one, right? And we're all we cut, we bleed the same, right? We're all human. But I think that this has to be from the beginning, and it's a pipeline problem in the sense it's not just how you raise your children, future young adults of the world, but also then, you know, creating work environments that are fair, that are inclusive, that encourage people, all people, to succeed, not putting the whatever ceilings you want to talk about. I was at an Asian leadership panel recently, or listening to it, and they're talking about the bamboo ceiling. Well, whatever you want to call it, it's a ceiling. It's something that needs to be crossed. It's a broken, whatever, right? And so that's still there. We're sitting here in 2020, and we're still talking about very much of the same issues that you could have said a century ago, right? Differently perhaps, but still very much the same. And so we really have a lot of work ahead of us if we're really going to see this very equal world out there. It's just the parity, I don't see it. I think, Manana, you and I recently had a discussion about, again, receiving feedback from people that just don't see you for who you are, and you're trying to build something that is important and impactful and different and groundbreaking in some way, and your ideas are devalued and dismissed. So I think all of this attitudes, conscious as well as unconscious bias that we deal with all the time, I think that has to change. So there's a real culture shift that needs to happen, I think, globally. If you think about the workplace environment and why we see still so few women executives, why is it the case that we see less women on boards? I mean, I'm proud to say that in California, they're saying, you know, you've got to have one diverse board member. Bravo, right? But don't stop there. Really,
Right.
I mean, one person, that's going to be that's going to be the bravo moment. That's pretty dismal, right? But I think, you know, we start somewhere and we grow from there. And I think that, you know, in business and in leadership and global leadership, I think that this time has arrived for women. If I look at women leaders like Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand, really setting a role model and a vision of what's possible. I like her brand of leadership, where she's unafraid to be who she is, to show emotion, to show empathy, to show compassion, and yet she has the love of her people and the trust of her people to be able to lead through difficult times and make those difficult decisions. And there may be some mistakes along the way, but you go in this journey together. I think that relationship of trust is something that women can really excel at. Because the way we nurture things is very, very different. So I think, you know, Merri, you hit it on the head too. We've got an amazing set of challenges, continuing to nurture the next generation of men and women that are going to have those traits that are going to be positive for the future. But, you know, for women in particular, we've got to deal with other pipeline issues. How do you retain women in the workforce? We are churning out more and more women in STEM grads, but then what happens afterwards?
Exactly.
It just goes down. What happens to those women, right? Where are they, right?
That's why I'm here, and I say that's literally what I want to do.
Absolutely, right? So stay engaged and stay resilient and seek mentorship and guidance to help you along that journey that bolsters you in the way you need to be supported. And then on the VC side, I can't be more excited about creating funds that are much more inclusive, that are addressing the diversity that is before us. Global founders, I don't care what color you are, I don't care who you are, you know, if you've got something great that is worthy, absolutely, let's take a look at it. So I think that's what I'm excited about is creating more lanes on the highway, I say, and not just more lanes on the highway, but wider lanes on the highway. How do you make greater access to capital available for diverse founders?
And I have to say, you're in Silicon Valley. To me, that's the opposite of the, you know, that kind of scene that I want to be in. I just cannot.
Hey, you know, buck the trend. I'm not a trendsetter kind of a person. I'm just going to say, look, I see an opportunity. I'm going to go out and build it, right? It doesn't matter where you're at, Silicon Valley or any other Timbuktu on earth, but it doesn't matter. If you have a vision and you want to do it, go do it.
I agree.
Yes. And I have a question. Give me please like a short advice for the best mental health. for the female health.
In the workplace, in technology, in COVID? What do you mean exactly?
Yeah, in COVID time.
So I think it's important. Like we've been through this for 6 months now, right? So you must go on with your life, and at the same time, keeping your back of your mind that in your certain places where you need to protect yourself, protect yourself. If you're alone in your car, take it off, the mask. I'm a big fan of washing your hands with soap and water. Perel is only in a certain situation, but the minute you get home, you need to wash your hands. Perel is not as healthy for you as soap and water, just so you know. Soap and water kills everything. I studied this stuff in college, played with viruses every day. And Perel has chemicals in it. So just so you know that. And then mentally, you can relax because you've taken your precautions. You should not be worried. You need to keep your immune system high. So if you want to keep it high, you take your vitamins, you eat well, you sleep well, and you cannot let the stuff get to you. Do not stress.
Mm-hmm.
Do not take on too much work, because it is easier during this lockdown. Like I was working 12 hours a day. I didn't have to commute. I didn't have to get all dressed up. I could just wake up, get coffee, get on the computer, and get off 12 hours later. And I did, but take it easy. And so that's a big part of our mental health, and learn to smile. And also, people are home with their families. And I think that, especially in the beginning, it was wonderful. You saw your children more, you saw your spouse more. You were all doing household activities together, even if it's cleaning, cooking. I think that's kind of nice and keeps you happy. So what we've learned is that maybe we were moving a little too fast. Maybe we weren't home enough. Maybe we weren't balanced. So keeping a balance in life in all aspects, I think, is super for your physical and mental health.
Okay, thank you, Merri, so much. Radhika, maybe something special from you?
Mindfulness. I mean, that's the word of today. Mindfulness in everything. I mean, people talk about mindfulness. It's just with yoga and stuff. It's not just with yoga. It's the balance, like you talked about, Merri. So on point. I like gardening, for example. My garden is my sanctuary, my haven. It's not just about going there and making sure my plants are alive and I'm watering them. There's a connectivity to that, to life. To seeing the habitat that's outside. The day that we had a couple of days that we had those orange skies, I went out to water my plants and not a bird in sight, not a bee in sight. It was surreal because all the animals are hiding. They're afraid to come out. It looked weird. It felt weird. It felt like you were on another planet. So I think that connectivity, that mindfulness of we're here, we're very present, we're connected to life outside. Find a sanctuary, find an activity, whether it's exercise, whether it's a garden, whether it's books, whether it's whatever it is, chatting on the phone with your mom, your brother, your sister, your family, whatever it is. I think that connectivity to the outside is so important. I think that really helps you get centered. And as Merri, as you said, I'm guilty as charged of spending way too much time working, but finding the moments of separation and say, I'm going to have a schedule, because I think that when you go to work, you have a schedule. And when you don't go to work, that schedule gets very, very blurred. So I think having a schedule is really important, because you separate the day and compartmentalize it in a way that it's structured, and that might help you be more mindful of that schedule and be respectful of yourself and me time. That me time is so important. So take time for yourself.
Good point.
Have some good exercise.
Yeah.
And spend some time outside if you can.
Okay, Svetlana.
Yes, I also would like to add from my personal experience as I'm founder, as I'm responsible for my health, family, as well as my company. So I'm always running. I'm always doing, I'm always working, I'm always thinking, even whatever. I can be in a garden, I can be just in the kitchen cooking something, but I'm always thinking about business. So, and that's the problem, because you couldn't see anybody or anything around yourself. You couldn't respect yourself. I think that the most important thing, just stop. Nothing happened if you just switch off your mobile phone for a whole day. So, and this is, I think, the most important from my side advice to the founders as well for startups, because you can stop, you can relax, otherwise you die, because emotionally and you can have problems with health and so on. Just do your schedule in the right way where you really can try to have balance, because sometimes it's very difficult to have, and even to give you an hour or two just for relaxing. So that's my personal advice from my own experience then.
Okay, thank you so much. Merri, what is your plans for the next 2 or 3 weeks? What's going on in New York City?
So in New York City, we have some crazy new laws, and there's been a change. A lot of people ran away from COVID and moved to the burbs, and the homeless were taken out of their shelter. The criminals were taken out of jail, and they are now living in our streets, and our streets are not so safe. So I was with some friends about 6-7 weeks ago, and we started to discuss this and said, you know what are we going to do? We have to make a difference. So we sat around, had some ideas. Do we want to make this political? No. Do we want to raise money? No. What should we do? Oh, I'll make a website. So I go home and make a website. Next thing you know, we're building an app, and we're going to have an app within the next 2 weeks. What to do to show what's going on, good and bad, because I said there must be good included. Panic button, your inner group of people that you need to always point to touch a button and tell them, hey, this is what's going on right here at this location. Either come for me or don't come near it. And even last night, I was out in New York, went to a brief meeting, went to eat. And so my friend goes to show us this other app, and it was pointing right where we were. A half a block away, there were 3 police cars. There was already something negative going on. So I'm very excited about that. We want to make a difference. We want to keep people safe. And if it turns out this is great for New York, then other cities can adapt it also. And, you know, the app is patented in many countries, so it should really be kind of exciting. So that's my immediate thing, other than the projects I'm already working on.
Oh, it's fantastic. Radhika, same question. What is your plans for the 2 or 3 next weeks?
Wow. What isn't there on the plate? There's lots of initiatives, continue to work on the venture studio. I think that's really taking center focus. I'd been planning a large conference just prior. We had that September 2nd and 3rd, and I'm on the board of an organization called Thai Silicon Valley. We're a nonprofit, one of the largest nonprofit entrepreneurship focused organizations, and I'm on the board of that. And we just had our large flagship conference that was all virtual, a 2-day bonanza. So I'm taking time away from that now and refocusing energies on Venture Studio. You know, hopefully we're working on the 2nd edition of the book as well, because that was on hiatus for a while. So bringing that front and center, and just focusing on other projects. I mean, there's a lot of different you know, overseas kind of connections that I think have been kind of now coming into focus again. And so I'm really excited to work with other parts of the world and continuing projects on that side. So lots going on in the next few weeks to come and the rest of the year, basically.
Oh, it's great. Svetlana, what is your plans for the next 2 or 3 weeks?
Well, I would like to say that we will close 2 difficult and very big deals in Singapore at last. So the agreement will be closed just next week. Another one, I will participate in 2 virtual conferences also in Asia. And my son has holidays, and I will spend all the week with him.
That's special.
And bring him to mountains. This is also my big task.
Nice. And you, Manana, what are you going to do for the next week?
Yeah, I was just going to say, reverse the question.
I don't know, because it's COVID time. I mean, like, I'm without the plans. Yeah, I don't know why, but
maybe when this app gets going, you're in Manhattan, we'll get you involved too.
Yeah, it will be great.
It's important.
Okay, ladies, Okay, ladies, thank you for your time. It was so great. Yeah, let's do it something together.
I
with
love
women
it.
in tech.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Yeah, involve more female founders and investors who want to invest in female technologies. Yeah, and something like I can share on the next time. what's going on in New York City too.
Good. Very nice.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Yes.
Everybody stay
Yes.
safe.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking
Yes.
forward. Good
Thank you.
job, everybody, and congrats, both
Yeah.
of you, Manana and Merri,
Yes.
and Svetlana, doing all your wonderful activities. Really great to be on the
Yeah.
panel with three of you.
Yes.
Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.